Awesome. Well, thanks very much for, firstly, I guess just from a wheelchair rugby standpoint, we don't get opportunities like this very often, and so obviously to be welcomed up here to Retail Fest and stuff for us is a really big deal, and we're really thankful for the opportunity to be here. My name's Chris Ney. I'm the CEO of Wheelchair Rugby Australia, and obviously not retail. And so at the start, when Dylan sort of rang us and suggested what do you think about sort of coming up here? We were kind of like, are we going to have the right sort of content? But then when we sort of look at it in a totally unaligned industry, I guess we're shooting for the stars in our own way. And if there's any inspiration that people can take from our very first ever creative campaign, we'd never worked with agencies, we'd never worked in that sort of lens before, but we kind of thought that for us, it was an appropriate step sort of to make, and we went and shot that. So if there's any inspiration or anything at all that people can take out of this presentation, hopefully we can gain a few more fans for our sport. So just, I guess, on that note, can I just get a show of hands quickly as to if anybody is actually aware of wheelchair rugby as a sport and has seen it? And awesome, there's plenty of hands. I guess it always gives me reassurance that we're doing our job when that's the case. I guess for those that don't, I'm going to spend the first sort of 5-10 minutes contextualising who we are and what our sport is, just so that you can get an understanding as to why we decided that a creative campaign and a big marketing campaign, I guess, was appropriate for us. So I've got a couple of clips here that will really easily, I guess, contextualise that for everyone in the room.
When I was 19 years old, I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer.
In 2011, I was involved in a car accident.
He picked me up and dropped me.
I was born with a condition called Charcot-Marie tooth.
My impairment is a limb deficiency.
Got 3 fingers on my left hand, no fingers on my right.
Dove into the water.
I slipped as I was diving in.
Broke 2 bones in my neck.
I was playing football.
I put my head over the footy.
And as I've gone down to pick it up,
collided with an opposition player's leg at the wrong angle, broke my neck.
I have a C6 incomplete spinal cord injury.
C5, C6.
C5 quadriplegic.
Quadriplegic?
I had meningococcal when I was 1 year old and lost the end of all 4 limbs.
So that there is our Australian Steelers team profile, essentially. And so it's a really good way to sort of give you some insight about our sport. Some of the things you might have picked up there, firstly, is that we're a mixed gender sport. We're the only sport in the world that plays full contact that is mixed gender, and that's the entire way up through to the Paralympic Games. So there's actually no female sort of version of the sport at the Paralympic Games. We play together. Now, pleasingly, Australia, we're the leaders of female involvement in the world at the minute. We just recently had 4 of our 12 athletes that were female that played just recently in Adelaide, only as little as sort of a week and a half ago, representing Australia. So obviously that there's still a skew. It's not 50-50, but you've also got to, I guess that leads us to the next point, is that our sport also predominantly is for people that are quad impaired. A lot of people don't really know that. They kind of just think that if you're in a wheelchair, then effectively you could play wheelchair rugby or wheelchair basketball. It's actually not the case at all. You've got to demonstrate impairment essentially across all 4 limbs. There are some form of change to that, but we like the primary sort of area that we would get would be spinal cord injury and people that are quadriplegic, which you would have seen in that video, but then also across neurological impairments such as CMT, cerebral palsy, and then through to sort of quad amputee-based stuff for people that have sort of survived sort of aggressive cancers, your sepsis, all that sort of thing, and they've ended up with sort of different adaptations on the end of all 4 limbs. I guess where that sort of leads us then goes through to the third point, which is our classification, which is a really beautiful part of wheelchair rugby. Often it takes place behind closed doors. So often if anyone's watched the Paralympics before, you might see sort of C15 or T37 classes, and to the layman that doesn't really make a whole heap of sense. So for us, the easiest way to explain it is that you've got 4 players that can play on the court at any one time. And the more impaired you are, the lower your classification is. So at the very base level, there's you can get a 0.5 classification. So that might be somebody who has obtained sort of a severe spinal cord injury. They might use a catheter or a carer day to day to sort of support them in their life. And they're sort of used as blockers or running screens and that sort of stuff on court. As your function improves, you go up in your class. So you've got 0.51, 1.52, all the way up to 3.5. Now, a 3.5 might be somebody with the same ability to generate muscle as, say, anybody here in this room, but they just might be amputated, say, at all 4 limbs or whatnot, which would be the 4-limb impairment that has seen them eligible for wheelchair rugby. Well, you can only play 8 points on the court at any one time, and a lot of people don't know that. So for Australia, for a long time, our best lineup used to be we got 2 of the best 3.5s in the world. But that's already 7 points, so we would need to pair them with 2 0.5. So often people would watch and go, why are these 2 doing all the work and these 2? And you go, you have no idea how good they are for their level of impairment, right? And you can sort of see how that would work. Now, depending on the athletes that nations have available, you'll see a whole gamut of lineups be introduced. So New Zealand used to play a lineup where they'd share the ball, they'd play 4-2s effectively, and they'd play that way. So it's a highly strategic game. Where the female inclusion sort of part comes into it from the mixed sport side is that anybody that's a 2-point or higher that's a female actually gets a bonus 1-point advantage on the court that we can utilise, and anybody that's underneath the 2 gets a 0.5 advantage. So we're sort of looking, if you look in our long-term planning, say for Brisbane 2032, we feel that we might actually be able to run an all-female lineup with some of the players that are in our game at the moment coming through the system, which would see us afford to be able to have 12 points on court as opposed to the traditional 8 points on court. A couple of other peculiarities when people look at sort of the gender split and why there's more males than females is that if predominantly our sport is made up of spinal cord injury, which at the moment the data suggests that it is, the data also indicates that risk-taking behaviours like getting into bar fights, driving drunk in cars and all those sorts of things, jumping off high things in a bodies of water, predominantly more so skewed toward male activity and behaviour as well. And so that's why we sort of see the sport set up as it is. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but our national team, the Australian Steelers, is one of our most successful teams that we've ever produced, whether it be across the Olympic or the Paralympic games, right? Like, we're a multiple gold medal winning team. We've gone and had all sorts of success all across the world. And here's just a little snippet of that team in action in the recent bronze medal performance we had at the Paralympics in Paris.
To score, they can't get out. Even as boxed in, it's popped over the top. Bat's going to get in. They are going to score. Over the line goes Jarlon. There are 5 seconds left. 5 seconds to cause a turnover. They haven't managed to do it. Chris Bond is going to go over the line, get the final score, and Australia win an absolute thriller, 55-53.
So you can sort of see that the scale the sport gets played on, like, is in front of, tens of thousands of people all around the world. There's contracts now available sort of overseas from an international standpoint. But one of the things that we, I guess, started to see as a bit of a challenge on our side was we have this wonderfully successful team. We've got males and females competing at the highest level, representing our nation all across the world. And 1, no one knows, or I guess 2, no one effectively would seem to care either. And when you look back at the decorated history, they've been the longest team ever in wheelchair rugby history that's taken the world #1 ranking. We're #2 in the world at the moment. Multiple gold medal, multiple bronze medal. It's something that we sort of really wanted to set about changing, and our sport's been on a journey to do that. And so I guess the way that we've tried to how do I go back on this? Sorry. How we've set about to do this is we've got like a really simple vision as to where we're going. It's really clear. Whenever we hire new staff at the moment in the organisation, I'll always speak to them about this. And it's something that we're sort of really trying to manifest and bring to life. And I guess it's a 3-word mantra, and it's just called Boomers, Matildas, Steelers. And I suppose what we mean by that is, like, I'm not a basketball fan. I obviously wasn't very good. I'm only, ex-high. And so I never really grew up with basketball being part of my world, nor am I a soccer or football fan. Rugby was my sport of choice. But every time those national teams play, as an Australian, I would seem to care about it. They resonate with me. They play in international competition all over the world. It's a really relevant thing for our nation. And so when I sort of looked at that, I kind of thought that, like, we don't need people to care about wheelchair rugby day to day and the trades that are happening at a local level. But I guess when the Steelers play, the nation should care. And I kind of felt that if the nation knew about the people that we had in the game, the history, the way that the classifications work, the fact that it's a mixed gender sport, that's a really realistic goal for the nation to care about us in major competitions. So we are striving to become a household name, break away from, I guess, the disability sports sector and be known as the first sport from that sector to do that. Effectively, what the Matildas experienced in 2023 so far superseded, I guess women's football. It was more a movement for women's sport. And are we the next cab off the rank in a sporting sense to do that? So one of the things that we sort of worked out is that no one is going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. And so I guess relating this back to a brand and a marketing sense, we started to really conceptualize, like, how are we going to address this problem and how are we going to sort of attack this? And so we kind of came up with a 5-step plan. The first one would be we need to grow our own brand at home. So we now run the largest wheelchair rugby event in the world every year, annually, so that we would used to win all the time. We won the World Championships in Denmark, in Veil. We won the World Cup, which is in line with the Rugby World Cup in Paris when it was in 2023. But it's at 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning, and we'd wake up and no one would seem to care there. So we've actually just created our own major event that brings some of the best teams in the world to Australia, and that's one way to get the Steelers at home in our own time zone. We've got a great broadcast deal. It's on Fox Sports KO right across the country. The second part would be sort of understanding sort of our worth. Like, I guess when I would go into conversations or presentations at times, like you could feel that, like, you'd have the word wheelchair in front of your organisation name and people would just think that you're coming to them for money or that. And I was a little bit apologetic in the way that we would speak or present, but the more belief I have in our athlete group and where the sport's going, and we're so strong on where we're headed, that, like, we actually know our value and our worth now and what we can bring, say, to a sponsor or to a brand or, I guess, to the broader community in a number of ways from a visibility standpoint as well. We've also completed our pathway. You could imagine to find enough quad-impaired kids to play wheelchair rugby. Often, it's only 7% of our sport born the way that they are. So that's acquired over the span of a lifetime. So obviously that spike in interest and registration for us comes around the 17, 18 sort of period. But because of the visibility that we've created on the first sort of couple of steps, we have found and identified enough junior participants around the country to create our first ever junior sort of wheelchair rugby competition. So we've got an end-to-end pathway where you can see, junior kids with the same impairments as heroes, and you're starting to make that connection that people can see flows the whole way through. This is what we're going to speak about in more depth today around Officially Unsponsored, which is our first ever digital campaign. And effectively what it was designed to do is, okay, we feel like we're ready after those first 3 steps and some of the growth that we've seen in the sport, but how do we attain Boomers, Matildas, Steelers? Well, like, the first thing we need is a sponsor, and it's not just the money, it's pretty much not even really about that. But for us, it's about the legitimacy that a big national brand who sponsors the Matildas or who sponsors the Boomers would provide to us to be able to go out and achieve that. And so that was, I guess, the notion that we came up with Officially Unsponsored. And then I'll speak also a little bit about our integration in the 2027 Rugby World Cup, which will be in Australia as well. So, Officially Unsponsored. This is the first AI generated. I know we just came off the back of a session about AI. That was literally the first time I ever used it was this. And effectively, it was kind of like, we want to do something, and we partnered with Ogilvy. Ogilvy, I don't know if anyone sort of works with them or has heard of them, but for me, I didn't know who they were, but apparently they're a very big deal. And they sort of came to us and said, hey, we believe in what you're doing. They saw me present at something similar to this, and we'd love to partner with you to execute sort of a really bold campaign. And so we came about with the idea that we're going to go as national as we can and as public as we can with a campaign that just says Officially Unsponsored is, I guess, the main tagline. And this was the first drawing of it around, like, how we turned our team that was invisible to sponsors into one that couldn't be ignored. That idea, I guess, has manifested now into what we see today, which is the launch of our Officially Unsponsored campaign. Now, that is a QR code logo. It's active, so if anyone did want to sort of jump on, it'll be sort of visible throughout the session, but it was sort of this cornerstone of the campaign. But effectively, where we got to with the campaign is we actually stripped back our green and gold uniforms, and we put forward a white uniform. We dressed our team in all white, representing a blank canvas to say, hey, we're here and we're available we're available to work with you if you want it. Now, we would put this logo where traditionally a sponsor's logo would be. So on the polo, it would be there, and on the uniform that the team would wear, it would be front and centre, right in the middle. That logo would then direct people back to our sponsor shop, which is the first digital marketplace built for sponsorship from a para sport sense right across the world. And so that would highlight, this is what we're doing, this is our team, this is our successes, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for major partners. We're open for business. So you can see a little screen grab there that it would come through into our platinum sponsorship, and you could go down, and effectively we created our own store. Now, there was no pricing on that store because there's so many things that go in behind that, so it would just be a little form that would fill and come through to me, and we would triage a whole heap of that interest. So that was the first part, was around like the commercial side of the campaign, but you could obviously see that it's also twofold, because by doing it via mass media and mass marketing, we're going to hit a lot of the broader community as well with this campaign. And so we're encouraging, and it was built into the campaign, that if you're an individual and you don't work for a brand that can support us, which there was hundreds of thousands across the country, that tag people that you think would be a great fit, see whether they or not they'll see it. And we tried to generate a whole heap of social storm and fandom around what we're doing from that sense as well. And so that was, I guess, the design of the campaign, and here was some of the treatment. So we obtained over $700,000 worth of out-of-home media for our team. First time ever, we've been profiled on bus stops. We've been profiled on billboards. We were at Sydney Airport. There was a big one over Tullamarine Freeway in Melbourne. I was in an Uber and saw it and was like, pull over. But he sort of, and I was trying to get him to reverse down the median strip so that I could at least take a photo of it. But and obviously, we were sort of everywhere. We tried to flood as best as we could, sort of roadblock socials, people's LinkedIn, anyone that we could, to sort of talk about this movement and our campaign. And so some really striking imagery that we thought would also sort of showcase a point of difference potentially for brands if they were looking at us. Like, very easy to say, oh, wheelchair rugby, like they don't have the same numbers as the NRL, AFL, whatever. But what we do have, we could visually highlight, I think, really well as well. So, and then I guess the last part to the campaign was the visual treatments that we used through TikTok and all the social media channels. And I'll just play one of them for you now.
The Australian Steelers have brought home
gold medals, world championships, endless trophies.
And currently, no major sponsors.
Tag a brand in the comments to help us become officially sponsored.
And so we had treatment like that, the multiple different sort of versions, like tailored for every scenario, sort of really flooding, I guess, social media, the internet, to promote what we were doing. Within the first 4 days, I couldn't believe, I guess, the reach that we hit, but we saw over 11 million Australians reached in our first 4 days of launch. We were syndicated 165 times through sort of News Corp right across the country, and here's just some examples of what some of that print and digital media looked like from our sense. And on the left there, you'll see the screen grab that we used on some of the video. You can see the community really buying in and tagging brands like your Qantas or your Bunnings or whatever to sort of get involved and support the sport and the campaign. So plenty of treatment. You can see there's our captain, Chris Bond, in the middle there, dressed in his outfit. Liliana, who's actually here today, we've got a little stall set up now in the exhibition hall for directly after this, where people can come and engage with Lil and some of the athletes and things as well, so you can meet some of the team. But then also, some of the treatments, and obviously for us to be in a full page spread in mainstream media terms, particularly through sort of News Corp, was a really big moment for us. And I think parasport more broadly, it's kind of just making the claim that, like, we are worthy and we're here and we're not going away, and we're actually a really competent organisation and a good decision for a brand if they saw it in the right way. So I guess I'm only going to say that this campaign's half completed. So I guess halfway through the campaign, 50% of the way through the campaign, we reached 1.5 billion total impressions, I guess, across the world. 82% of Australia was reached in some way from the campaign, and we obviously saw a major increase in our traffic as well. Part of, I guess, the storytelling for us was trying to help educate brands that did come through the platform. Like, obviously, there's the elephant in the room, which is like ROI. Why would I not spend with the NRL, AFL, A-League, whoever, and spend our money with Wheelchair Rugby Australia? Like, what can you offer us? And I'll get to that in a second. But there's also some really strong data out there, and I guess this is for people that are in retail or brand land that really supports sort of a shift in psyche. So we took a lot of these stats from Shift 20 research, which is Dylan Alcott's foundation. They're a really well set up organisation that's sort of designed to improve sort of representation. But you look at this and you go, well, more than 1 in 5 Australians have a disability for a start. And you can tell straight away, just by Chris sitting there that way, he's a very powerful visual representation of that community, right? Some disabilities you can't see and that sort of thing, but he is clearly, I guess, the representative of that community for if someone wanted to sort of utilise imagery like this in partnership or collaboration with us. But you can see a lot of the goodwill sort of sentiment that's coming through the statistics here around how much more positively Australians view brands that sort of do work in this space as well. And if you're going to spend your money, like I do that, even you go to Grilled and they give you a little token, you don't know that it goes anywhere, but you make sure you put it in the jar to try and do your little bit for the world. And I guess there's it's sort of clearly not isolated to me. I guess it's a demonstration of broader Australia in some of these numbers and key statistics. And this is some of the stuff that we're trying to help educate brands on. I was hoping to be here today with the launch. When I said it was only 50% complete, the idea is that we actually run the entire campaign again, but a slight subtle shift to officially sponsored. So we can provide public recognition across their uniform and across the middle of that circle there to a brand that does jump in and say, hey, you know what, we want to do that. And so we're hoping that, I guess, the success of the launch of the campaign and all the skepticism that goes, Chris, and the amount of feedback we've had that's like, hey, it's unbelievable. We're having some really great conversations that have lasted sort of a good sort of 2-3 months at this point. And I think it's narrowing to a point where we will have an outcome. But at which point we do, you're likely to see this totally relaunched in the same format right across the nation, profiling that brand. So if there was someone who goes, look, we just need to announce ourselves, we need to resonate positively with Australian consumers and things like that, then we've sort of created an opportunity for a brand to be able to jump in and do that. And again, going back to no one's going to do it for us, that Boomers, Matildas, Steelers thing, I guess that was part of our design, is to how do we actually create value. So speaking on the value piece and unpacking that a little bit further, because I want to give everybody an understanding as to what our mindset was when we went through this, is what we've tried to do with the campaign, because without it and without, I guess, the using that as the vehicle, what can I say to a brand when they come to me and they go, all right, Chris, well, we've got you and we've got the AFL. The AFL plays 26 rounds and they're national and they're broadcast every weekend. Like, how, from an ROI standpoint, can I actually stand up and go and argue that point? And if it mass reach and stuff like that is what you're after, then I feel like we obviously needed to create an opportunity to do that, but also explain how that might not also be what's best for your brand and that there could be another option to do it. And so this is where our thinking sort of went. One of the key thing was that we needed to increase our commercial strength. So yeah, it's great, the campaign looks good, but it's got to make sense for a brand. They've got to be able to see genuine ROI and genuine interest come back through what we did. And so first thing we did was, obviously they've got access then to unsponsored. So if there's a brand that wants to just jump off the page and go, you know what, we're here and like we've got the opportunity to speak to Australians based on the results at the start of that. The second would be relevance through mega events. So I can't really say too much, but at this point, but you would all be aware that the Rugby World Cup is coming to Australia in 2027, and for brands to invest from a sponsorship standpoint in that event, you're talking significant numbers with an M, in front of them. For us, there will be an opportunity where the Steelers are going to play at home in collaboration with the Rugby World Cup on a massive, massive scale that we probably haven't seen before in Australia in one of the major cities at that time. Investment with us to go through that period, and we've got control as the LOC of we're not bound by the same restrictions as what you would be from a Rugby World Cup lens. Does that provide an avenue for brands to go, you know what, commercially, like this actually could save us money and we're going to start accessing the same people? So straight away, we've tried to create some opportunities for brands to say, wait, there is significant value here, and change the narrative or the perception around how we may otherwise be viewed. I guess the last part would be we've also signed a Foxtel Media matching agreement as well. So any investment with Wheelchair Rugby Australia, let's say someone wanted to spend $100,000 with us, they would actually get access to $100,000 worth of media value through Foxtel Media as well. So it's allowing me to go to brands and say, hey, if you're already going to spend, your 10 mil or whatever you do throughout your different media streams, why don't you spend X with us, and then you'll still get the same value of that, but then you'll get access to our partnership as well. So from a commercial opportunity piece, I don't know another sport that's actually offering, certainly matching, but from a para sense, that side of things. So that's the commercials, and we'll park that there to the side on one part. And then I guess the last part is creating an opportunity for brands to stand out. And I think this is why we're so committed to coming and doing talks like this, so that people can actually get a better understanding of what we potentially could offer if they looked at a problem a little bit differently. One of those is opportunity through our stories. Like you would have seen that video at the start. The stories that we have access to in our sport are just unparalleled. Like every single athlete that's come through our system has a remarkable story of achievement, perseverance, and things like that. Like Ella, who's here today as well, she's one of the one of the best women's players in the world at the moment. She's just given birth to her first child. Which is and yeah, she's holding him up there like the Lion King, just in the back. She's watching, but she's here today. We've also got another female athlete who has just become a recent mother, and she's a 0.5 female. And I explained to you sort of so you're talking sort of hair and beauty products, you're talking all of that sort of stuff, and go, how do I cut through in a busy market? Well, I'll tell you how. Like, look at this point, like a severely impaired woman with a spinal cord injury, caring for her baby, getting up in the morning and seeing her get dressed, and how she would feed with a bottle and all those sorts of things. We're sitting there as an open book for that. Another sort of opportunities, like I went back and said how we created the biggest wheelchair rugby event in the world in Australia. That all sounds wonderful. When I launched it and created it and sent it all out, I then realised that, wait, we got 150 people coming to Adelaide on the same day in wheelchairs, and the biggest vehicle in the country to be able to transport them around is a little minivan that has that lift out the back and lifts people in. So the quote for transport just to get us from the airport to the venue and to their hotels is $118,000 a week, because we need 12 vans minimum to get people to and from. So I ended up being able to push enough to get on a call we've got the former Governor General of the country, David Hurley, is our patron. He called the Premier of South Australia. I was eating a bowl of ice cream at home at like 9 o'clock, and he rings me and he goes, oh, mate, the Premier wants to speak. Can you jump on Teams? And I was like, yep. So polo on, jumped on Teams and sort of said to me, he goes, so what do you need? And I said, mate, I need you to strip the seats out of all your low-floor city buses, and we need to commandeer 3 of them to run the event in a loop, right, to get them we'll pick up from all of the accommodations, we'll take them to the stadium, and it's just a looped transport solution, and we've got no other way to run it. There's no other way in the country to be able to do that, and they agreed to that. And then now we're proudly sort of boasting the most incredible transport solution parasport scene based off the back of that innovation. Now, if you're a motor vehicle brand or something like that, there's opportunities left, right, and centre across our stories. Like I've never seen, and it goes right across industry, I've never seen someone with one finger taking a bite of a KFC burger or a McDonald's burger, right? But I tell you what, we'd remember it. Like I was just saying before, I remember the tongue ad where it came out of that person's mouth and went down the road and got a beer. I was probably 8 or 9, so it's probably a bad thing to say I remember it. But like striking visuals like that being first is something that we actually do offer, I feel, and it's been slept on a lot. And so we're sort of trying to really lean into that and just say we're providing an opportunity to be different and to stand out through integration with us. And we're fully committed to the fact that we will have our Matildas moment. We think it's going to be next year in line with the Men's Rugby World Cup. We're so ready for that. We've got the unsponsored campaign supporting us. We've gone from 3 to 19 staff. Like, we are a capable organisation committed to this social change that extends para sport. It's sort of just good for the community and good for Australia, and we're on our trajectory to do that. So we're committed to doing that, and we're trying to bring, I guess, brands and the community along to go, you know what, this is a different way for us to look at it, and commercially it's now starting to make sense. So just looking at my timer going down here, I've got 59 seconds left, so I actually didn't time it beforehand, but I feel like that's a good job. Hopefully Dylan's happy with that. The 2 thumbs up, I didn't go over or under, but I guess in summary, I know that we're not a retail brand, and I really hope that I was a bit nervous coming here that people might think that there's no value in terms of turning up and listening to our session. But if there was anything that I could sort of impart to the community is like we are shooting for the stars in our own way, as I'm sure everybody else in the room is with their organisations and things like that. And I guess out of necessity, we were never going to change the trajectory that we were on unless we took some serious action, and we've gone ahead and done that. So we will be in the exhibition hall. We've got a couple of our athletes here, Lil, Ella, Ryan, like they're all here. They've got their chairs, balls. Even if you wanted to come in and have a go, we've sort of cleared out the carpet tiles, and you can actually go and play and see the chairs and all that stuff, and integrate yourselves with our athletes. And I'd recommend you do that because there's some wonderful people, and we'd be happy to speak to you there. But outside of that, really thankful for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for staying around.